Oh, such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Visit Blinds.com now for up to 45% off site-wide, plus a free professional measure. Rules and restrictions apply.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to How We're the podcast. And the lads return to Premier League action this weekend after we progressed through to the fourth round of the FA Cup at Everton. But it was a weekend dominated by the rare sight of an FA Cup giant killing, which you don't see too often now, but I'm sure we will mention it a lot more before we finish up today, because we entertained Crystal Palace at the Stadium of Light this weekend, with both sides looking to return to winning ways in the Premier League. Especially with there being only 2 points and 3 places in the league table separating the two sides. So, to get all the latest on what's going on at Palace, we are very pleased to welcome Luke from the YouTube channel, LukeTalksPalace. Welcome, Luke.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Cheers for having me on. And yeah, glad to talk about this weekend. It should be a really, really exciting game.
Yeah. How's things? I mean, are you looking forward to getting back to the Premier League?
I mean, we're all football addicts because Sunday morning I wake up and I'm like, I can't wait for Sunderland away because I am going to the game. So I had to pick between one of Macclesfield and Sunderland. And luckily, at the moment, I picked Sunderland. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's a weird feeling at Palace at the moment. It's like we just need to get back into our groove. But the big excitement for me ahead of this weekend is the fact we've actually had a 7-day break. No football in between. We can actually, players can get a couple of days off on that, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, it's good. That festive season. It almost feels like with that FA Cup game, it almost feels like, because people talk about midwinter break or whatever, but it almost feels like you get one around that FA Cup game, don't you?
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird how it works, the footballing schedule. We love it, but this season for Palace has been an absolute mess. So yeah,
we're looking forward to getting in. Well, kind of looking forward to getting into that, But yeah, I mean, just on the thing, because obviously, look, I've mentioned it straight off the bat, but and I even went on the BBC website, today, and it's still all over there as kind of the story of the weekend and stuff. I mean, is Palace fans just trying to kind of hide from it at the moment?
it's impossible to hide from. Monday morning in the office, 9:01. It's the first thing you hear. The text messages from your mates and people you haven't heard from in months going, "Oh dear," and that's it. I don't know if that's in support of us. I don't know if that's to just wind me up, but that's what you get. But then to see some of the tweets like the PE teacher going back into primary school teaching on Monday morning, getting applause, this is the magic of the cup. We had our magic in May last season, and for some reason we've decided to give it straight back to someone else at the first time of defending it. So, it is still special. That's why we love the FA Cup. But yeah, that game, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Crystal Palace perform like that. And there is no excuses for it, but it's quite hilarious that it seems like the sun and an AstroTurf pitch is our kryptonite. So if we ever have to play on that again, then I know what I'm going to be tipping that day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, does it make it worse that, of course, being the winners of the FA Cup last season, but it was a bit of a double whammy because it took Crystal Palace's record of being the last non-league side to knock out the cup holders, which you did to Wolves, was it 1908, 1909, I think it was.
Something like early 1900s, that's for sure. And I mean, again, it's the way football works somehow. How is that the way it worked then? And it's happening to this time. It's crazy. It's bringing up lots of thoughts again now. I thought I buried them deep this game, but yeah, it's happening. But yeah, as I said, you've got to applaud it. I mean, it wasn't one of them where it was like a snatch and grab, in my opinion. It just felt like they fully deserved it, and they've got another Premier League tie coming up next. So hopefully we're not the only ones they managed to defeat.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm not going to say too much. Just, if they go through and we go through and all that sort of stuff, you never know. But anyway, let's move on, because we'll come on to where Palace are at the moment and where that kind of defeat sits in the context of what's going on at the moment. But just about yourself, Luke, because obviously cover Palace on YouTube. So how long have you been doing that?
So that's a couple of years now, doing a bit on TikTok as well. So it's been a lot of fun following Palace for about 13, 14 years now. So it's been a really enjoyable journey. There's obviously lots of lows along the way, but to be able to tip it off with the FA Cup win, Community Shield win, and now I'm touring Europe. I mean, bucket list is kind of complete really as a club at my stature. So yeah, really good.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you don't have to talk about your cup exit. I will come on to your cup win, so don't worry about that. I will mention that. But how far back does your love of Palace go then?
Yeah, I think it was like 2011, 2012. And, back in that day, my dad could take me to a game and it was like kids a quid for certain games. Gone are them days for sure. But, that was what got us into it. And they do them campaigns for a reason and it does work. And I've been a season ticket holder ever since. Got a season ticket the season just before we got promoted. So to be fair, as a Palace fan, to be able to see us get promoted and then achieve history at our club and stay in the division, I just feel like I'm very, very blessed. You hear some of the older Palace fans go back in my day, and it really is because, we've managed to maintain Premier League consistently for 13 years now.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, just looking at that around that time, before you got promoted, and you got promoted by finishing 5th, but you finished 17th, 20th, 21st, and that was in the second tier, of course. A few seasons before that, Darren Ambrose and all that, Glenn Murray knocking the goals in. But, I grew up with Palace doing well in the top flight with the likes of Steve Coppell and Ian Wright up front and Mark Bright and all of that. But younger Palace fans now must be thinking, well, we were born at the perfect time to be a Palace fan.
Yeah, definitely. And it does feel a bit weird that some Palace fans now probably wouldn't even remember the promotion season of 2013. And that doesn't feel like too long ago. For me, that's kind of what I was growing up in. But, it's just how the cycle goes. And yeah, there's been some special players over the years. And we've had some fantastic, skillful players as well over them times. But for me, it's been weird because obviously Sunderland, I think, only had a season in that promotion. So as a Palace fan, I've only seen them that season and this season, which far too long for sure.
Yeah, I was just lost as well, thinking when you beat us in the playoffs about 10 years before that as well. With Ian Dowie and Neil Shipley and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, in terms of Sunderland, we can go back over 100 years for our first ever major trophy. It's we read about it in the history books and see kind of the old grainy photographs and all that sort of stuff. But as a Palace fan, can you describe what it was like to be alive and to witness your club's first ever major trophy win last season? Because, to be fair, not many fans will have that experience now.
Yeah, you obviously dream about it, especially when you haven't won that trophy before. You dream about it, or if you just haven't seen your club lift a trophy, you are dreaming about it. That is the footballing dream. For me, over the years, there's been an argument with some Premier League fans, they'd rather be top 8 and not win that trophy and have that year in Europe. But for me, like, even if you couldn't get Europe with the FA Cup win, I think just to lift that trophy is just a remarkable achievement. You want to support and play for a football team to lift trophies. So yeah, the moment that final whistle went, or the moment that Jeremy Doku shot went wide, I mean, I burst into tears. I couldn't believe it. You don't know what you're going to do, really. But yeah, the emotions just came out. Tears were going. I was hugging everyone. Everyone was just hugging each other. No one could believe it. Yeah, it was surreal. And honestly, like, you just still think about it every now and then, and you're just like, how did we do that? And things like that do help. If the weekend's result happened and we hadn't have won a trophy, I tell you, I think my head would be on Mars a lot more in this video, in this podcast, and the head loss would be a lot more real. But I feel like I sound a bit defeatist, but you've won it now, and you can, like, okay, just think about that and don't think about what's happened on Saturday. And yeah, it's a really special moment for sure.
Yeah, it was interesting. I listened to your most recent YouTube kind of release that, and you were kind of almost saying that it was almost a race between you and Brighton to see who was going to get that first trophy.
Yeah, I know. Like, you have your rivalries with them clubs, don't you, around you? And we have our Brighton rivalry, and it has been a good one over the years. And they got Europe a few years back, and they've had bragging rights. And we've managed to just tip that and get an FA Cup trophy win. And they're obviously all winding us up about the weekend, but you can just ask where their trophy is. So we've got something to hold for a bit for now. And yeah, I'm happy they got Liverpool away in the cup. Hopefully our next slot's going to be on form then.
Yeah. But just about that day, that the FA Cup final against Man City, because Sunderland have had we've had moments, yeah, I'm going back to the League One playoff final where we rocked up and I just knew we were going to win, and I just had that feeling. And, I again, one of my first FA Cup finals that I sat down and watched with my dad was actually that Man United Palace one, where Ian Wright did his thing and then Lee Martin in the replay and all that. But I mean, did you almost kind of turn up having low expectation, or did you think, we're going to do this? We're going to end it and we're going to win our first major trophy today?
We had the 2016 FA Cup final. That was complete heartbreak, so I went into this going, you know what, we've just made it here again. This is special. Another FA Cup final.
Mm.
Let's see what we can do. But all Palace fans, all of them would have said to you, this is our biggest ever chance of doing it, because we have a manager who has professed for the whole season about winning stuff, about winning games, about going for the trophy wins. And for us, we've never ever had a manager speak like that for decades. It's always been about survival. Loved Hodgson for most of his era, but he called us spoiled for just being involved in the Premier League, and to go from that and the mentality shift of Glasner. So we were thinking, you know what, like if we're going to do it, it's going to be under this man. And yeah, it just felt even special. And then when Dean Henderson saves a penalty, I know there's controversy around him anyways, but when he saves that, then you're thinking, hang on, Haaland's giving away his penalty for some reason. Like there's something just working for us here.
Yeah, that's it. Well, actually, you mentioned kind of trying to battle against relegation and stuff, because looking at the last decade or so of Palace, obviously we're talking about that kind of good time in terms of younger fans supporting Palace, because it's the 13th consecutive season in the Premier League for Crystal Palace. But in that time, I was looking at the league table finishes, and Palace have finished between 10th and 15th for the last 12 years. Which is in some ways, obviously what Sunderland is trying to do. We're aspiring to be that long-term Premier League, where things get that stability. But, having done that for so long, how much fun is that?
That's such a tough question, because I know over the last couple of years before last season, Palace fans were getting the whole, oh, it's so boring. Some fans were saying they'd rather support clubs battling promotion in the EFL instead of being mid-table in the Premier League, which I don't agree with, because to be stable and consistent is very, very underappreciated, I think, in English football. When you see what the likes of Sheffield Wednesday are going through now, Reading went through, to be able to consistently battle in the Premier League is huge. And yeah, there are some reasons where you feel like you should be able to push on, and there are some criticisms to those above, for sure. But, sometimes you do have to just battle through them years. And I mean, probably about 8 of them years we'd be in the relegation battle till about December. So it felt really weird that we'd still be involved in that. But there obviously is some boredom. There is some boredom. But, luckily over them years, we've had some brilliant players who've actually managed to keep us, on our toes, get off our chairs at the stadiums, like of Zaha, Eze, Lise, So yeah, it's boring not to push on and have that ambition, I would argue, for sure, but also underappreciated to just be able to battle in the Premier League every season.
Yeah. Well, if you'd spent 4 years in League One like we had, you learn to appreciate, I think, being in the Premier League for 13 consecutive years. But actually, just going back to the start of the season, obviously, because you're talking about, obviously mentioned Europe a couple of times, but Palace should have been really looking forward to a season in the Europa League. But, they were said to have breached multi-club ownership and demoted to the Conference League. I mean, how did you find all of that? I mean, because it does seem to have, created this us against them with the Palace fans.
Yeah, it was a mess. It was a mess. No way to talk about it. It was a mess. And apparently, if Strasbourg had finished one position higher, then Chelsea would have been in the same mess as us, because they didn't do what they needed to do in the right time. And they spoke about this March deadline, but apparently Forest's owner didn't do that until April. So you had all this going on, and I'm waffling there because that's what it felt like. It was just like, you're getting this chucked at you, this chucked at you. Everyone's trying to break the story first, which is a huge problem with English journalism right now, trying to break the story first, which doesn't help. And yeah, it just it did ruin that summer feel a bit when you just come off that trophy win and that. But, you're lucky there's now a third European competition that we can get put into. And, it hasn't been perfect during that, but I've done every away day so far, and that's just been a beautiful, beautiful journey so far. And yeah, very frustrating, very annoying. You could go on for days about how, the bigger clubs probably wouldn't be in the situation we were in. They'd get that leeway, and we didn't, and we were made a name of, really, because, They felt like they had to. And I could go on it for ages and criticise all of those above. And we've done some lovely chants about UEFA this season. But, I'll stop there and just, we had to move on. And that's what football does.
Yeah. Well, just while we're on the topic of that European campaign, I was just looking at the games you played in. Obviously, I mean, looking like you're kind of situated well to at least get through to the. I think you're in that middle section, aren't you, where you might have to play a game to get through the last 16. But Dynamo Kiev, Larnaca from Cyprus, AZ from the Netherlands, Strasbourg, Shelbourne. I mean, and the Finnish side who you played just before Christmas, drew 2-2. I mean, how are you finding that? Because there's this element, there's this romantic kind of feeling that you're in Europe. And I remember even enjoying the Anglo-Italian Cup in the 90s when thinking we might play Italian sides. But you want to play the glamour sides. But are you thinking that that's to come? I mean, how are you finding these early stages of that competition?
Honestly, it's kind of even more enjoyable that it's these randoms I've never heard of, apart from the likes of Strasbourg. That's for me personally. If we've never been in Europe before, so just to be able to, get a 4 a.m., 5 a.m. train to then get on a Eurostar to then go to Paris to then to Strasbourg. I've transferred in Copenhagen twice for a couple of them because it's cheap, just to do these silly little journeys, see these lovely places so far and enjoy it has been really good. And I mean, every game we could have won. We've made some mistakes in some, we've missed some open goals in others. So, it could have been even better. But then the positive to take from it is I'm hopefully going to be doing another away day. And it's just whether it's going to be Bosnia or Czech Republic. I'm kind of hoping it's Czech Republic because it's a direct flight and that's less messy. But, extra 2 games, as long as we win, that'll be fine. And we won't be moaning about that come the end of the season.
Yeah, that's it. I think there's a few Sunderland fans, 1 or 2 Sunderland fans who might be keeping an eye on their passport just to make sure it's all valid for next season. But just before we get into Palace this season and the game of the weekend, I think it's time for a quick break. So we'll be back very soon.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire an energy vampire. But also they're a literal vampire. And suddenly my team is spending all their time sharpening wooden stakes and buying bulk silver and rehearsing ancient chants, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant takes insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a short list of the best fits for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
And welcome back to How We're the podcast. And of course, we're talking all about Crystal Palace. But just before we get into this season, Luke, because look, it hasn't been kind of, we're talking about that stability in the Premier League, but 8 managers in those 12, 13 years we're talking about. And, to an outsider, it looks strange when Palace have gone in completely different directions. Sam Allardyce, then Frank de Boer, then Roy Hodgson kept coming back. Then you try again with Patrick Vieira. Then you go back to Roy Hodgson. It seemed to take Palace a long time to work out what direction they were going to try and go in.
Yes, so we've definitely had a wide range of managers, very different styles. I mean, to be fair, the promotion years for the first sort of 6-7 years, it definitely was the same sort of manager. And that is literally every manager you've seen on the recent Uber Eats adverts in Alan Pardew, Big Sam and Tony Pulis.
I hadn't thought about that, actually.
Yeah, so that's great to see them still in action and still getting in jobs. So, we were definitely going for a defensive style and just kind of grinding out the results, and it worked for years. The first time we actually attempted to not do that was Frank de Boer, and that ended after 4 games with no goals. And it was crazy, and I think that set us back a bit, but I think that was more unlucky because it sounded like, from what we were hearing at the time, his ego was through the roof, making players watch him shoot from like 30 yards before training started, putting Towns in as a right wing back and just weird stuff. So, it happened, but then tried again with Vieira, got that stability. And I think from there, that's really helped us. That was a huge summer. We lost a lot of players. We managed to rebuild with a more progressive sort of manager, and it worked really well. And now we've gone for Glasgow, and, you take all them years of a bit more boring football survival to then be able to reach these heights. And, you do have to flash back to 2010. We were in administration. So, we had to do that. Somehow got promoted, very, very not expecting it. It was one of them ones where you really were just expecting a bottom half battle, get that promotion. And then I think 2017, we really went for it in terms of transfer window. We're spending I think we did 30 mil on Benteke, 15 mil on Schlupp and stuff. And then again, financially, that sets you back a few years. So we had them years again, and it's, you accept them years of going through that in order to then try and maybe push on when you have that chance.
Well, this is interesting because, you hear, noises coming from Glasner because obviously you were talking about that real long stint of finishing mid-table. But are Palace at a bit of a crossroads, in terms of whether or not they should stick or twist to try and take that, up to the next level?
Realistically, who could Palace get that's not Glasner, who's going to do better than Glasner? And that's, for me, no one. He's not perfect, he has been touted for bigger jobs and stuff, but he's not perfect, and there are some small flaws for sure that has been exploited against the likes of Macclesfield. But he's got this mentality, which for me is an elite mentality. He will try and win every game. He's worked wonders with us. I don't think any other manager would have won us the FA Cup last season. That was available that we could actually get. So for us, it's you'd hopefully keep him, and then ambition-wise, money-wise, we spent 30 mil in January, but then again, the argument is, if we had that money, why didn't we do that in the summer to give us more of the squad? And exactly like you're saying, try and push on. So for me, if you have the opportunity, you've got to go for it and just take that risk element with it.
Yeah, but as a manager, Glasner does seem the type where he might potentially demand that from Crystal Palace.
Yeah, he's definitely come out a bit in interviews, hasn't he? And said his bit, but then, a week before, maybe sometimes he's doing that to put the pressure on. And then the week before we signed Johnson, he kind of put the pressure more on himself and said maybe he should have added more to the squad and asked for a bit more, which is really interesting to hear. But maybe he's saying that because he wants more now. So you never know. I do think with Glasner, he does time when he says stuff publicly on purpose a little bit. But I think that's what Steve Parish needs. He needs a bit of pressure on him. He is comfortable and completely understandable. He's done amazing stuff. But, we do see other clubs push on past us, not being in the Prem as long. And so you need to push. You need to push a little bit and just try because, yes, a decade of mid-table can be boring and you accept it. But, 20 years, it's just not going to be sustainable realistically. There is going to be a lull period and you could suffer from that. So, yeah, hopefully we can push on.
Yeah, you do feel though that that those clubs, and obviously include Sunderland in that. Hopefully, where if we stay up this season and kind of we go on to 2 or 3 seasons, where you look at West Ham and Wolves, and you're always 1 or 2 bad transfer windows away from having a shocking season.
Yeah, it's crazy how it can go. And when you see these teams start to have the bad season, you kind of look back and you're like, yeah, actually, I can see exactly where they've gone wrong.
Yeah.
So, hopefully lessons are then learned from them clubs doing that. And the likes of Sunderland have clearly learned some lessons about promotion. They've looked at the last few years. They've gone, we can't do this. We've got a moment here. We've got a chance. We've got a chance to be back where we believe we belong. And Sunderland have massively, massively taken that chance, and fair play to them. And it's come at the perfect time as well with the likes of West Ham and Wolves starting to drop off. So if you hadn't have done what you did and you ended up like looking like you were going to be relegated at this point in the season, it just feels like a big what if, I guess.
Yeah. Well, getting into this season, got off to a great start. 3 defeats in the first 15 games, but the last 6 games, you've had 4 defeats and 2 draws. That seemed to begin middle of December. Did something change around then, or was it just a tough run of games?
It's when the transfer window shut in the summer, Palace fans were literally like, look, there is this period in December. We have a lot of fixtures. We don't have the squad depth. If the likes of a Munoz gets injured, you're replacing him with Nathaniel Klein, who this is no fault of his own. He is 35, 36. He will not do the same as Daniel Munoz. And then December hits, Munoz gets injured, and you're like, okay, you can maybe deal with it. And then you get this whole fixture list situation where we're in the quarterfinals of the Carabao. We're playing in Europe 2 days before having to play Leeds because they didn't organise when to put the quarterfinal of the Carabao Cup. I guess they just didn't expect us to get there, which is just really frustrating, which causes us more issues. We had 3 games in 6 days. And then you pick up the injuries, all that combined. And we literally lost our whole right side. Sarr went to AFCON, again, something we knew would happen. Munoz got injured, Kamada on the right centre mid got injured, and Chris Richards, right centre back, got injured. And that caused a lot. And then that happens, morale switches, confidence is gone. And then you see the type of games like the one against Macclesfield, which just felt like the whole of December just came together and just imploded. So it's not all about off the pitch what's happened, but, you know, on the pitch, there's definitely been some big, big issues. We've missed so many big chances this season. The likes of Mateta have not performed to the likes that they were before. So all of that combined has just caused this, I think, no wins in 9 run, which is really sad. But as I said earlier in the podcast, we had a 7-day break now before Sunderland. We have more breaks between games. I think it's the first time we've had a 7-day break since mid-November. So hopefully we can just take advantage of that.
Yeah. Well, that run of form, of course, you know, if you put the FA Cup defeat in there, and the League Cup, and obviously you're on a good run in Europe, but where does that leave the expectation for Palace this season? Is it now just an acceptance, right? Get another mid-table finish and maybe see if we can get some glory in the Conference League?
Conference League is that should be full priority. I think that should be full priority at the start of the season. But this is the perfect season to have a bad month. Every club's going to have a bad month in this division. It's always how it goes. And luckily, we've had ours, and I think we're still only 3 points from 8th, despite not winning that many games. You know, it's one of them seasons you could be 7th at the start of January and 14th by the end of it, because that pack is just so congested. So that's really helped us. So for me, you'd still try and battle for that top 8. You try and go for it. We've shown when we have a full strength 11, this squad can do it. We can remain undefeated over a long period of time, and we just push on for that. But yeah, for now, it just has to be you try and do that in the background, but the main emphasis should completely be on the Conference League.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just looking at the last 2 away games in the league, let's ignore Macclesfield. That was a one-off. We'll just ignore that for now. But the last 2 away games in the league, defeats at Newcastle, and there was a 4-1 defeat at Leeds. But actually, I was surprised when I looked into it, because I've always thought Palace were really strong at home and then picked up a few points away. But it seems to be the other way around this season, where Palace have been better on the road. You know, are they just set up to be a bit more effective away this season, because you're usually stronger at Selhurst Park?
I think actually the Selhurst Park being a fortress has been a myth for years. We have obviously picked up huge results there.
You've
in the
built it
atmosphere.
well.
But if you actually look at the results, like, there has not been a lot of good home results, especially since the start of this season. And during Glasner's era, like, we were second in the away league going into December, and I think mid-table in the home league. So the issue has been, and as seen by Macclesfield, when a team sits back against us, we do not have that maverick anymore who can unlock that defence. It's more about passing it around, and we're not shooting outside the box enough. So, you know, we're really putting a lot of emphasis on our attacking trio to score the chances we give them, and, you know, not take on defenders, not try and dribble past them. And that's been a huge issue for us, because you are seeing clubs start to massively exploit that. And you look at the games we've lost or drawn, I mean, most of them have literally been from that. The Larnaca, same thing. Macclesfield sat back. Everton away, we 1-0 up. Missed chances. They got the 1-1, sat back, and then they unlocked us in the last minute. So there are definitely some issues against the low block, and we've got to sort that. And yeah, I think there's definitely more emphasis on this season about the away form, because, you know, we can counter more and we can use our strengths a lot more that this team have. But yeah, Selhurst Park it just feels a bit deflated at the moment. I think that's because the atmosphere has died down a little bit over the last year. The results haven't been as great at home as they have been away, and combine that with the poor run at the moment, and it's hard, but it's just one of them things.
Wow, we're breaking that myth of Selhurst Park, Luke. I mean, it's dangerous. I thought all Palace fans had to keep that myth going.
I'd like to think at the moment, you know, we have accepted a little bit that, you know, Selhurst Park has died a little bit in terms of, you know, being that fortress. But I also think that when you are in the Premier League so long, it just sadly happens. Like, when you see a home team get promoted, like a Sunderland, like, they are fully on it. And I'm not saying that atmosphere will die. But for us, it was like we were fully on it them first 7, 8, 9 years. And then, it changes. It changes, and the expectations change. You're not just trying to get points; you're trying to win games, and it just combines. And a little bit. It's not the same as it used to be, and I think I'm kind of saying that in a bit of a sad way. Not trying to, you know, criticize my own fan base here. Just it has been better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just in terms of that, coming into January, because obviously you're on that bad run, but Mark Gay, obviously, I've looked on the BBC today, and it just seems to be all about that surrounding Palace. It seems to be going here, there, and everywhere. Nobody will pay the money apparently, or maybe they will. Who knows? Big question mark. This seems to be this question mark over Glasner. Is he happy? Is he not? Will he respond if Gay is sold? I mean, how will all that play out? Is this just constant distractions for Crystal Palace, especially while the window's open?
Yeah, it's so frustrating and sounds really silly, but genuinely believe if we didn't win the FA Cup, the media would not be pushing this as much, especially the Glasner side of things. Marco Silva is out of contract at the end of the season at Fulham. You're barely hearing it. You hear it the odd occasion, but it's not every week like I'm seeing with Glasner. And it's just because he's achieved something so big at Palace, people are acting like, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? And I do completely get that's the story, but that is going to massively play on the minds. And it has been a heavily packed kind of couple months. So obviously, it has been hard to kind of maybe sort that future or tell us he's going to leave. So that obviously is a huge bearing. And now the Gay news, that is obviously annoying as well. And you combine the two, that's your captain and your manager. Many Palace fans would say your best ever manager and your best ever defender, possibly leaving at the end of the season or January. And you don't need that. And the players, it's going to affect them, isn't it? It's going to affect them.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I mean, you mentioned we talked about the away form and what Crystal Palace don't like playing against. But how will Crystal Palace approach the game? Because, like I said, they look strong away from home. But do they soak up pressure and try and hit teams on the break, or do they control possession? I mean, what should we expect?
Honestly, over this last month, I really don't know what to take game on game, and that is just literally because Daniel Munoz is not in this team. And we all knew he was a big loss, but actually, he is the key player. We didn't realise how big a loss he would be because he's the one pressing the defence. Let's say it was this weekend. He'd be the one high pressing the Sunderland defence. He'd be the one getting the tackles in, and he'd be the one producing our biggest chances and also defending really well. So we have lost something so huge with him. And the fact is that now Klein is also injured. We're playing a centre mid there. So a key position in a Glasner setup is completely just not what it is able to be until Munoz is back at the moment. So especially with the way we're playing at the moment, I would expect we do soak up a bit of pressure. It's all about the first 15 minutes, Don't give Sunderland a go early doors, please, Palace boys, because that is just going to completely turn the atmosphere. And I sadly believe it could be something that we cave in on, especially when you look at what happened at Leeds as well. So we'll sit back and hopefully not concede any set pieces, because that's practically the only way we're conceding goals at the moment. I think it's 10 set piece goals we've conceded in our last 11 goals. So that is a big fear ahead of playing a side like Sunderland.
Well, we're all checking if Dan Bollard's fit and checking the odds on first goal. But I mean, you mentioned set pieces there. I mean, if we've done our homework, I mean, is that the best way to get at Crystal Palace, or are there other ways?
Definitely at the moment. I think literally 3 of Leeds' goals were set piece goals. As I've said, 10 in the last 11 have been set piece goals. And it seems to be something about the second ball. We might head it away and then the ball comes back in and we're not in the right positions. And again, I think it's because of the likes of Devaney having to play right wing back and it hasn't been set. But I do believe we'll be a bit stronger against you guys. Hopefully we've worked on that. But yeah, if you're looking at it, especially with the players you have, set piece, long throw-ins are definitely going to be a big way forward. And I mean, it might not be the most entertaining game because we're probably going to do the exact same thing.
Going to be a proper old-fashioned thing, eh? It's Allardyce against Pulis at the weekend. But like I said, not too much between the two sides in terms of the table. But what have you made of Sunderland this season?
It's like a breath. It's like a breath of fresh air this season. It definitely is. You'd like to, Palace have been in this division for a decade, but the history of Sunderland over the decades is so big that when you see a big team from like a one town club get back in the Premier League, it is good. It's good to see. So to then see them kind of push on and yes, not help us out, by pushing on, it's still good to see. It's been really impressive. People have said, Sunderland have splashed a lot of money, but you have to do that these days. Every club in the Premier League splashes cash, and it's none of our money. So who really cares? As long as they're keeping within the rules and able to do it, then why wouldn't you? So breath of fresh air. But I think the exciting thing about the signings and the squad is it's not just, your Premier League experienced veterans. You haven't signed them. You've looked for potential that you could possibly sell on. You've done what West Ham should have done over the last 5 years. You've learned big lessons from other clubs, and everything about that so far makes you a breath of fresh air. So yeah, I'm massively raving about you guys, and I still hope you lose the weekend, even though it might not sound like it. But it's good to see. It's good to see.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't ask for predictions on here because I think that they're a waste of time. But and in fact, I was just looking, and Sunderland haven't beat Palace at home in a Standard League game since 2003. So I'm going to avoid all of that. But what type of game do you think it's going to be? And I mean, how do you see it playing out? Do you see it kind of Crystal Palace just sitting in, waiting for that chance, and then just hitting us?
Yeah, I think it's got to be see what the home team can do. Yes, we are the Premier League present club at the moment, and you're still just one season in the Prem, but the emphasis will be on the home side, as it is in a lot of games this season for every club. And we'll see if we can just change that kind of pressure in the atmosphere, make it a bit nervy, and then kind of capitalise from that. I think what's really important for Palace is we stay defensively tight, because we're really bad at getting back into games when we are 1-0 down or when we are 2-1 down, for example. So it's going to be massively about the first goal, in my opinion. And yeah, you guys will probably want to try and take that on, get that goal early.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you mentioned you're travelling up, and it's been, I was just looking, I think it's 9.5 years since we last played each other at the Stadium of Light in a league game. But are you looking forward to it?
Really looking forward to it. I haven't actually done Sunderland, so really looking forward to it. Ticking off another stadium, which is great, and a big stadium at that. So nervous, wanting the win, believe we can get the win, but yeah, excited, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, is there a bit of expectation on from Palace fans, do you think, to get a result, or are they just thinking maybe pick up a point and get out?
Yeah, I think the pressure's more on just see if we don't lose at the moment. You want the win, but the fear won't be like a confident we can get the win. It'll be like try and get it and see if we can actually get it, if that makes any sense. So yeah, it'll definitely be nervy. That's the issue, I think, at the moment. When you go on a winless run, it's just nervy, isn't it? Until you get that win back.
Yeah, that's it. Well, we'll see how it all plays out, because other than the result, Luke, I hope you have a fantastic weekend up in Sunderland, and it just leaves me to say thank you very much for your time, Luke. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Good stuff. And thanks again for everyone for listening. Don't forget, we'll have our preview on the morning of the game, as well as immediate reaction after the final whistle with a pod that Gav and the lads will probably be recording from the pub. But we'll also have all the reaction on the website, so look out for all of that. But from us, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose?
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.